gentlemen, let's have a big hand for the creators of The Expanse! It's a lovely photo.
We used to look like them.
You look better now. Much better.
I look grizzled by comparison.
Yeah, not too bad. He's looking good. Yeah. Now, there might be a bit of confusion for people because the author of The Expanse is James S.A. Corey, as it says here. Yet we have two people. How did that all come about?
Well, we weren't one person.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, that was the start. No, my middle name is James, Ty's middle name is Corey. So we put together a pseudonym for the project so that it wouldn't look like, I had a few books published at the time when I was getting tired of writing my stuff and putting my name on it, which would have been kind of premature. So, we threw together a name specifically for the project.
So, who came up with the original idea to work together and start on this series?
I came up with the idea of The Expanse, but it was Daniel who came to me and said, hey, we should write a book together out of it. So if you have a great idea, definitely find a published author and tell them that they should write your idea and you guys can split the money. Because it totally worked for me.
100% of the time for him.
So what you're saying is he does all the work and you still get the perks?
No, it didn't work out that way, which sucks.
Well, and in fairness, part of the way this started was Ty was inviting me over to his place on Wednesdays to play Xbox to degrade my productivity. So, in a way, it's revenge on my part, because now he just works all the time.
So it really did kind of blow back in your face, really, didn't it?
Yeah, it didn't work out at all.
Now, one thing I've noticed just when we've been chatting there as well, you're massive geeks just like everyone here. We've just been talking about TV shows, Marvel. What's it like coming to these Comic Cons and meeting people that are fans of you guys?
It's a little weird.
Kind of surreal, yeah. It's not what I had pictured, except when I was feeling sort of self-aggrandizing. So this is great. I'm delighted that folks actually like what we're doing as much as we like what we're doing.
So when writing stories, obviously there's pressure on you to develop characters, develop a universe, and The Expanse has, actually when you think about it, a very, very big universe now because of the rings and being able to go to so many different places. But you started off just in our solar system. Was that what you originally were always going to go, or did you always want to kind of expand into like more of the universe? What was the kind of ideas you had when you first began?
So the title of the series is The Expanse. So yeah, the expanding universe was sort of built in. That was always the intention. And the thing is, if you start out very grounded and very real, then when the weird stuff shows up, it feels weird. It doesn't just feel like yet another weird thing mixed into a lot of the other weird things. It's the genius of what Game of Thrones did, is it felt like history until dragons showed up. And then it's like, oh, wow, now this feels like fantasy, but it grounded you in a very real world. We were trying to do sort of the sci-fi version of that, which is make people feel like it's a real, grounded, realistic place, and then you can add the weird stuff.
Although the diminishment would be an interesting series too.
So it just gets smaller, just set in like some cul-de-sac somewhere.
Yeah, no, the last scene would be like in a coffee shop someplace, two people having a cup of tea, and that'd be it.
That could be a new spin-off maybe.
I will suggest it.
I want to break that down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you buy that book? Yeah. It'd be a very short book. Would you like some tea? Yes. The end.
No, I want the one that starts out with the Galactic Empire and ends in somebody's living room.
Yeah.
All just sat around having tea discussing how they're going to take over the...
Yep.
Would you ever want to maybe look at taking some of the characters... Well, actually, I'll go back to what we're saying there, because we're talking about the end of TV shows and how sometimes shows need to end and they go on too long. Supernatural goes on too long. But you said
about that. That was him. I didn't say it.
That was me. Who believes Supernatural went on too long?
Yes!
Who thinks the Expanse needs to go on for longer?
Yes!
Guess what, guys? Would you like to tell them the bad news?
The bad news is that we started filming season 5 last week. So if you haven't seen season 4, which of course you haven't, I hope you like it because there's going to be more after.
We actually started filming Tuesday of this week.
Tuesday of oh good lord, it seems like longer. Yeah, no, it's season 5 is underway.
And also the 9th and final, the key would be
And
final.
the 9th and final book is underway as well.
What's it like working knowing that probably that everyone knows that'll be the final book? The pressure is kind of on you guys now to give an ending that is going to be liked, but a lot of authors I spoke to, they don't write for the fans, they write for themselves, but you still feel that pressure of fan service, or are you going to write it just for what you believe will be the ending?
I know I want to write the ending that I came up with 6 years ago, and it has always been the ending. And Daniel and I, the reason we work well together is because we only do things that we think are fun. So it's the ending we want to do. We think it's the fun ending. We'll see if people like it. But the minute you start trying to please everyone, you don't please anyone. So it's a bad path.
Yeah, and the ending that we have is the one that we earned. You build all the scaffolding, you build all the story towards a logical, emotionally satisfying ending, and then you change it at the last minute. I've watched that show. We were talking about it at breakfast. It's not much fun. It's more fun when it actually goes the way that the story wants it to go, not the way the story that the readers or the publishers or even sometimes the writers want it to go.
So talking about building, how did you come up with the ideas of the characters? How did you kind of decide, this is what I want this character to be, this is what I want this character to be, this is how we're going to kill that character in the next book? How did you kind of come up with the characters and develop those as the story went on?
Well, one of the things we do with each of the books is we know what's going to happen in the books, we know what that book is going to cover in the overall plot, and then we find the people who have the most interesting view of it, the people who are most involved, people who are most engaged with that, and then that has become the viewpoint characters for that. And we also let people's story arcs end before the whole story is ended. So Praxidiki Meng, who was in book 2, you don't really see him much after that because his story is kind of told. And over we'll have small arc characters through the series. So we're not servicing every character who's ever been mentioned in the whole thing by the end.
Do you have a preference on who kind of decides on what's happening with the character, or is it, as I say, a strong collaboration where you both kind of have the same ideas, the same direction you want to go? Has there ever been that kind of conflict where you went, I want this to happen, well no, actually I want this to happen? How do you deal with that sort of collaboration element?
I don't think there's ever conflict. I mean, we've already mapped it out, so there are things that are going to happen. Here's the stuff that happens. And we'll have a conversation about which characters in the world have the most interesting view of that, and that we want to write about. But it's usually not conflict. I mean, the map of what's going to happen is kind of already written, so it's just plucking out storylines from that. And
there have been times when Ty had to talk me into actually killing a character.
Yeah.
There have been times I was like, I don't think I can. I have to. Fuck. Yeah.
I'm much more bloodthirsty than he is.
It has worked out well, which is funny because I'm the guy who writes about death more. But yeah. Apart from the occasional, bolstering my courage to actually destroy something, there's not a whole lot of conflict.
Have there been any sort of characters where you've really related to, and then you've went, as you say, oh, F word, I'm going to have to kill them? Have you ever felt that connection with any of the characters, or wrote yourself or elements into certain characters in the Expanse?
Well, I kill all my favorite characters. By book 8, I've killed all of my favorite characters at least once.
Any particular reason for that?
We're writing stories?
Because I tend to like people who foolishly hurl themselves into danger. Those are the ones who get killed.
Well, and as we were talking about, good stories end. I mean, the thing that makes a story complete is that it stops. You reach the end, and then you don't keep flogging the horse.
And obviously, 9 books for the Expanse, all with unique and interesting names. How do you come up with the names for those books?
Well, we sort of
Random word generator, just go click, there we go. Then.
No, there's a distinct scheme. It's something classical or mythological does or owns something. We sort of stumbled into that. It was not the original plan.
But I mean, it's all very deliberate. If you actually go on Wikipedia and look up the mythical thing, it's spoilers for the book in almost every case. So, I mean, it's all deliberate. It's not random.
Yeah, Nemesis Games is my favorite for that because there's like 3 different ways to unpack that, and they're all true. And I love that. Right.
So when you write a book called The End, you know what's coming.
Yeah, that is the title of the last book.
Or the diminishing.
Yeah, it's like over, go home. Yeah, that's the one. Book 9.
I just love the idea of the diminishing and just the samurai. It's still stuck in my head. If this isn't wrote in the next few years, I think we're going to have lots of very disappointed fans, aren't we? Let's be fair. Be a very interesting TV show as well.
The Diminishment is the next series.
Well, talking about the next series, you have some future projects coming up as well now that the Expanse is slowly starting to diminish.
No, the folks at Orbit have contracted us for a different space opera series. Once we're done with the Expanse, we've got a kind of epic 3-book story to tell after this.
Just 3 books, no more?
No, just 3 books.
The beginning, the middle, the end.
Yep. The kind of classic, try not to mess with the structure. We were thinking about doing the beginning, the end, and the middle, but we don't think that the publisher's going to go for that.
It really confused people. It'd be quite cool.
Well, I like French cinema.
So what more can you tell us about that? So what sort of characters, what sort of universe within that? What could we expect? Or is that too much spoilers?
Yeah, we're not talking about any of that yet. But it'll feel very different from the Expanse. It's much farther future, sort of more
the way that
epic version of space opera.
The way that the touchstone for the Expanse was really The Star Is My Destination and kind of the Larry Niven's known universe stuff. The way that DNA is in the Expanse, we're looking to lift more from like Doom and Left Hand of Darkness and kind of that strain of space opera. Because the great thing about science fiction is that it's a huge project. There's a whole bunch of completely different, really interesting stories that fit inside that genre, and it's a lot of room to play in. So we're going to go play in a slightly different sandbox, but it's going to be in the same. It's still going to be sci-fi. It's still going to be space opera.
You just have a massive board in the office with just like all the storylines and the directions that you want to go, just so you can kind of keep track. Because like I say, the Expanse is such a massive universe, both literally and in the stories. How do you keep track of where you want to go? Or do you just kind of go, let's change that, let's go there, but this is the end, but let's go here, let's go in this direction. But you know the end, but do you ever feel you need to change direction to get to that point?
You would be surprised how few degrees of freedom there are in 1.5 million words. When you know where you're going to get, when you know what the end is, and you have 9 books, it's like, okay, so here's what needs to happen here, and it feels almost like we're hurrying. It almost feels like we're rushing to get everything in before we get to the place we're going, which is where you want to be. The part where you're going, oh, I don't know, why don't we spend a book over here doing this other thing, and then you have a tea party, and then you've lost all your momentum. There's not actually that much to discover in the great in the large plot. There's a lot to discover in the fine points. There's a lot to discover in the chapter by chapter work, in the scene work. But no, there's not. We don't have time. We don't have time to screw around. We got to get there.
Well, that comes into, you say, the pacing of it, having that fast pace makes it more exciting. It makes people think, well, what's going to happen next, and where the character's going to go. And as you say, getting those finer little details, just having little scenes that just kind of show the characters. Is there any sort of scenes where there's lots happening, but you just went, I just want this character to stand out. I just want them to have this moment to kind of lead their character development on. Is there any ones that have stood out for you?
I mean, you're always trying to do that. Every scene should both move the plot forward and expose character. They should always do both. In fact, if you're really good at it, which I don't know that we are, but the best authors, every sentence does that. Every line of dialogue moves the story forward and exposes something about the character. So that's always the goal.
Yeah, the trick is to take all the scenes that don't do that and cut them. I'm a strong believer in editing.
Do you find it tough when you're reading it? I don't know how much the editors have a say in it, but do you find it tough where you maybe wrote a scene that you really enjoyed and you went, actually, that's not taking us anywhere, and you've just had to scrap it?
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often because we do outline it. We generally know what we're doing, but there have been entire chapters that we threw out and rewrote.
Generally, it's not scenes as much as it is chapters. It's like here's this thing that goes, or we could just assume that and move on to the next thing and nobody will blink. And then there's always that question of the level of detail. When you say, okay, he gets up from the couch, he walks over to the door, he turns the knob, he opens the door. You could do that in a paragraph, or you could do that in a sentence, or you could just not do that and pick him up on the street. All of those are legitimate things, and the question is how easy is it going to be for the audience to imagine that and to have that experience, and how important is it that they imagine the actual turning of the knob? It turns out often not that important.
So obviously the TV show will have had a massive impact on people knowing that it started off as the books and get them involved with it. And obviously the new season starts in December, is that right? Did I say December? Yeah. What can people expect who have read the books? Is there going to be a few surprises for them in the TV show, or is it going to be kind of along the same lines but just some things that they may not expect? What can fans expect from season 4?
Yeah, I mean, it's like every other season has been. It is following the story of the books, but we always try to find ways to keep it interesting and surprising to even people who read the books. That's always the goal.
We've been very focused on keeping to the spirit of the books, but not being tied to the details of them. So there are a lot of changes. There are a lot of characters who you're going to expect to see that you're not going to see. There are going to be some characters you don't know who you'll be introduced to, but it's the same story.
Is it tough adapting? Because on a book you've got all of these pages, you can be really descriptive, but on a TV show you've got, say, 10, 11, 40-minute episodes to try and get that whole story out on the screen. Is it tough adapting from book to TV?
Yeah, but that's not the tough part. Yeah, I mean, it is tricky, but of course, when we write a book, there's only us and the words we put on the page and the reader's imagination. Those are the only people involved. So we're doing all the heavy lifting along with the reader who's doing the heavy lifting of imagining. Whereas on a TV show, when I write a script, and I've written a bunch of them now, I have this army of 200 people whose only job is to think of awesome ways to turn that into something on the screen. When I'm writing a book, I don't have a prop master, I don't have a set designer, I don't have costumers. All of those people read the scripts and help imagine it. So yeah, we've got less space to tell the story, but we've got a lot more people helping tell the story. So it kind of balances.
What was it like seeing for the first time when the pilot episode aired, seeing this story, this universe that is both worked on, and now all of a sudden it's in a visual format for a new audience to kind of become part of? What was that feeling like, seeing that there?
weird. No, it's fascinating because, of course, it's not just the books and then the TV show. This was a tabletop role-playing game when I came to it. So there's the version that I was imagining when we were playing the game, and there's the version we were imagining when we were doing the books, and then there's the version on the screen, and there's this kind of repetition of the same story over and over through all of these different media.
And before that, it was a design document for a video game. So
I didn't see that one.
Been a lot of versions.
And it's, I don't know, it's like kind of watching your kid go to college. It's like, oh, look, now this is launched into this new way that I have less and less control over, and it's also awesome. And it's great.
Would you ever be tempted in the future to maybe revisit, maybe not the characters now, but with that universe, maybe go back into that universe in the future? Or is that it? Book 9 that is the end of this universe, no more going back into it?
Good stories end. And I think that endlessly churning in the same universe, eventually it gets thin. You use up all the stories. And you start retelling the same stories over and over again. And some people can make that work. And there are franchises that have gone on for half a century and been able to somehow do that. It's not something that I'm particularly interested in doing, though.
I think that once we are done with our books and short stories in the Expanse, we will have told the story we were here to tell. Anybody else who wants to tell stories in that universe, that's what fanfic and role-playing games are for. And a lot of what we do is in response to the things that we loved when we were reading. And a lot of, this is a conversation. The genre is a conversation. We will have said our bit on this one, and then there'll be time for us to shut up and let other people talk.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of the reason The Expanse exists is because 12-year-old me read Stars My Destination and wished there was more. Got to the end and said, why isn't there more? I want to read a whole bunch of books in this universe, and there weren't any. So I grew up and I wrote my own. But I mean, that's the thing, is that everybody who decides to write a book is in some way picking something that piqued their interest in the past and said, I want more of that, and I'm going to write my version of it. And hopefully people write their own thing, and 20 years from now is saying, yeah, I read the Expanse when I was 12 and I wanted more, so I wrote my own.
Do you ever have a look at some of like the fanfics and fan work, the fan art and everything like that?
No.
Never. It's a scary place, isn't it?
No, it's a place filled with legal liability for us, so we can't. If we go and we read some of these fanfic and it looks like what we had to do in book 9, then we are on the hook legally. We either have to change book 9, which we don't want to do, or we have to deal with the idea that we may be sued and have to give money to somebody.
Well, I mean, let's face it, the creator almost always wins that lawsuit.
I don't pay the lawyer anyway.
But you still, it's expensive and it's time consuming. And the narrative becomes that you stole someone's idea, which you never want that to be the narrative. So it's just safer to never win.
I never thought of it that way, but that's actually a very good point, because even in the back of your mind, it might even be there and it might influence you, which you'd never want to do.
Right. So no, I admire fanfic. I'm glad that it exists. I can't go play it.
So if anyone ever requests, you can just say, sorry, this is the reason why. If anyone ever writes one, that's really why they thought, actually, have a look at it.
Yeah.
Maybe when it's finished, you can have a look and say, actually, they actually predicted that quite well 3 years ago.
When it is finally cooked, we have the option. Until then, we can't.
Right, now, before we finish, I thought we'll do some fan questions. Well, Johan was like, even before he knew what was coming, he's like, get this hand up, I want to ask. Right, I'll come out to you guys, give you a chance. Right, Jim.
Thank you very much. My name is Marco. I have a question for Daniel. I asked about Daniel Abraham books in the bookshop. They say the sorry, we have only books of the guests of the event. So I have two questions. First, do you think that there is the risk that your books as Daniel Abram are being obliterated by the big, huge success of The Expanse? And second question, are you going back to write Daniel Abram's book? I miss so much Lady Clara Callian and Martin and so on.
That's very kind of you. I write under three names. I write under Daniel Abraham, I write under James S. Corey, and I write under MLN Hanover. James S. Corey is tremendously successful. Daniel Abraham is a solid mid-list author. MLN Hanover can't get arrested. I sell like maybe a book a week out of a 5-book series with her, and she's gone. I don't think that Daniel Abraham books are being obliterated by James S. Corey. I think that they exist entirely separately. It is a completely different career, and the two, as you have noticed in the book short, don't speak to each other at all. Even though it's an open secret that I do them. I think that's my reminder that this is about luck as much as it's about any kind of skill or talent on my part. Because I don't suddenly turn into a shitty writer when I'm doing MLN Hanover stuff. They just don't sell. And yes, I am under contract for a new fantasy series from Orbit. I'm finishing up the first one of those right now, and they'll be out in the next couple of years. It won't be the dagger on the coin because that story is told, but there'll be some more stuff. All right.
That's a really good question. Right, just jump on here.
You guys draw a very fine line between the realistic elements of space and of course the magic elements of the story, the post-molecule and whatnot. How do you guys manage to keep that all grounded still and realistic, even though?
How do we keep the story kind of grounded and realistic? Actually, high school physics is sufficient to give it that kind of Wikipedia level of credibility that we're aiming for. Having inertia work the way inertia works makes science fiction feel very hard.
Awesome. Any other questions? You suggest making me run back and forth, right? I'll come to you then, I'll come to you guys.
I was just wondering, as there's two of you, how does writing work? Like, does one person write and the other person edits, or do you write kind of bits together?
Yeah, we do exactly what you just said. We generally split up the book by chapter. Decide who's going to write a chapter ahead of time, outline all the chapters together, write the chapters separately, give them to each other. The other person edits that chapter, and we add it to the master document. And then at the end, we both take a full editorial pass through the book. Sometimes he goes first, sometimes I go first. Just kind of switch back and forth. And then one of us will take the line edits when the galleys show up, because that's the horrible job. So whoever did it last gets a pass.
A good copy editor is a beautiful thing. They're rare and wonderful, and a good copy edit makes us look smarter and wiser and more talented than we actually are, and a bad copy editor makes you bleed from the eyeballs. Everything that has gone, everything that shows up on the page, we can tell you who wrote the first draft of the chapter, but we can't tell you who wrote which sentence. There will be times when Ty's like saying, "Oh man, this I love this line. This one line in this chapter of yours. That's a great line." I'm just like, "Yeah, you wrote that."
Right, we have time for one more question. Gentlemen here, go on.
Hi, so my question is really, who came up with the idea for Belgian Creole and the whole Belgian melting pot sort of culture thing? Because that's like a huge thing, that's huge language.
Well, in the books, that was my idea, but it's based on history. Everything I do is based on history. It's based on a thing called the Greek fisherman's language, which was a polyglot language that formed in the seas that were around Greece and Italy and Turkey and all the different cultures that fished the same ocean, and they sort of came up with this weird mixed language that all the fishermen spoke so that they could talk to each other. So that was more structured and organized because we didn't have any rules. We're not linguists.
Yeah, we don't know what we're doing. So
Unfortunately, we are out of time. However, 3 bits of cool news. Number 1, they are going straight over to Forbidden Planet and signing copies of their books. So if you're interested in getting a signature, head over to Forbidden Planet, which is across towards the author section. Number 2, at 4 o'clock today you have a workshop. And if you are interested, you can go on the MCM website, go on to attractions, and there's still a few slots left. So if you go on, you can sign up to that at 4 PM. But the most important news is, you're back here tomorrow at 10 AM. And if you've got any more questions, want to speak to more, I'll try and do more fan questions tomorrow to give you guys a chance. So please come back to the live stage tomorrow as well at 10 AM. We've got a very busy weekend actually.
yeah, it's going to be full.
But we really do appreciate giving you time here and obviously meeting the fans and obviously joining us on stage. So thank you very much for the day. Enjoy the workshop this afternoon and we'll see you again tomorrow.